Friends, everyone on the plane mocked him as a beggar because of his dirty clothes, but why was the entire plane forced to stand up and salute him a short while later? Let's find out what happened that day and who this mysterious person was. It was a morning flight from New York to Los Angeles. The cabin was buzzing with the noise of passengers. The cabin crew was busily helping everyone settle into their seats. Amidst this modern crowd, a man with a mismatched personality suddenly entered. He was about 50 years old, lines of fatigue clearly visible on his fair skin. Messy blonde hair and a look of deep melancholy isolated him even within the crowd. He wore an old blazer with the top button of the shirt underneath unbuttoned. He looked urban, but his social status was hard to gauge. Panting, he showed his ticket and found window seat number 17. Seeing him, a white woman sitting next to him covered her nose with a handkerchief with a look of disgust. Her eyes seemed to say, "Is this man really a passenger on this flight?" A flight attendant named Jessica was watching him from afar. With a suspicious look, she came closer and said, "Excuse me, sir, may I see your boarding pass again?" The man smiled calmly and said, "Yes, certainly. Here." Flight attendant Jessica took the boarding pass and looked into his blue eyes with suspicion. Then she nodded and walked away. The man, saying nothing, kept staring at the clouds outside the window. The person sitting next to him, unable to tolerate it anymore, called Jessica and said, "Listen, please change my seat. There's a strange smell coming from this man. It's impossible to travel the whole way like this." Jessica said helplessly, "Sir, I am extremely sorry. The flight is fully booked. Not a single seat is empty. You'll have to adjust a little today." The man grunted in annoyance and sat back down. The man, John, pretended not to hear anything. His gaze was fixed on the sky outside. Just then, someone from the adjacent seat shouted, "Hey John, is that you?" The man looked in surprise. "Don't you recognize me? I'm Steve. We went to high school together." After realizing who it was, John smiled faintly. Steve continued, "You were the college topper, first in all exams, and look at the state you've made of yourself today. Traveling in economy class in such ordinary clothes? Look at me, CEO of a multinational company, salary in the thousands of dollars a month." There was more arrogance than friendship in his words. John replied in a calm voice, "It's a long story, Steve. I'll tell you sometime if I get the time." He opened his bag and took out an old framed pair of glasses. His hands were trembling slightly, but the look in his eyes was as firm as steel. Just then, the plane jolted slightly and dipped a bit. Mild panic spread among the passengers. Flight attendant Jessica announced over the intercom, "Respected passengers, please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts. We are encountering mild turbulence. There is nothing to fear. Everything is under control." But the situation deteriorated rapidly. Suddenly, a massive jolt shook the entire plane. The murmuring of passengers' prayers could be heard. Just then, the cockpit door opened and Jessica ran out. Her face was white with fear, her lips trembling. She shouted, "Please, is there a doctor among you? It's very urgent." A middle-aged doctor, Dr. Robert Williams, stood up and said, "I am a doctor." He rushed towards the cockpit. After a while, he returned with a worried face and said, "The pilot has had a sudden stroke. He is unconscious and in no condition to fly the plane." Silence fell over the cabin. The pilot was sick and there was a terrible storm outside. The co-pilot, Captain David, was struggling to handle the situation alone. Jessica announced again in a trembling voice, "Is there anyone among you who knows how to fly a plane? The situation is very critical." The passengers' faces turned to stone with fear. When death is so close, no path seems open. At that exact moment, that quiet and sad man, John, raised his hand. His eyes now gleamed with confidence. Steve, sitting next to him, shouted, "John, you're going to fly the plane? You'll kill us all. Find someone else." The other passengers also began to object in fear. You're going to let this beggar-looking man fly the plane? Couldn't you find anyone better?" Jessica hesitated and asked, "Sir, do you really know how to fly a plane?" John replied with a steady gaze, "Yes, I do. The last time I flew was 10 years ago, but I can try." There was something in his calm voice that silenced everyone. From the cockpit, Captain David shouted, "If he has experience, send him quickly. I can't handle this alone." John stood up. There was firmness in his walk now. His demeanor had changed. Confidence radiated with every step. He entered the cockpit and glanced at the control panel. Then, putting on the headset, he contacted the control tower. "New York Control, this is Captain John Miller speaking, also known as Johnny. Our pilot is sick, requesting permission for emergency landing." Hearing Captain Johnny's name, co-pilot David's eyes widened in amazement. This name was a living legend in the American aviation world. 22 years ago, this man had safely landed a plane carrying 312 passengers alone during a terrible storm. He was only 28 years old then. But 10 years ago, due to a mechanical failure, he was suspended. He had said that day, "My wait will end." As this news spread through the cabin, those who had insulted John just moments ago turned red with shame. The woman who had covered her nose sat with her head bowed. Steve's face turned pale. The storm was still raging outside, but in the cockpit, John's hands were working skillfully. Every instruction of his was perfect. After a while, the plane touched the runway without any bumps. The passengers breathed a sigh of relief. "We didn't even feel the landing. He did magic." When John came out of the cockpit, there was a strange peace on his face. The passengers who had thought him a beggar stood with their heads bowed in guilt. Steve ran up and said, "Brother, you really are that Johnny. You are still a topper today. I lost to you." John smiled and said, "It's not about winning or losing, Steve. I had just lost my self-confidence. Today I got it back." An airline official, Mr. Anderson, pushed through the crowd, bowed his head, and said, "Sir, we tracked your flight performance live. Our board wants to hire you back." John looked at the sky and said in a calm voice, "They took my job, but they couldn't take my courage." Hearing this, without any instruction, all the passengers on the plane stood up one by one. The entire cabin erupted in applause and respect. He who was an object of scorn just moments ago had today turned into a true